Hey, Hasan, have you talked about how Donald Trump managed to get 50% of the Latino men vote? I'm a 19-year-old Latino college student, and I know Mexican culture is extremely misogynist, but I honestly never accepted this. Let me just say something to my Chicanos in the chat, the people who, to La Raza. The do you mean? I know my fellow Mexicans are misogynistic. Brother, literally, Mexico elected a woman. What the hell are y'all talking about? Mexico not only elected a woman, but they elected a Jewish woman in a country that is like 98% Catholic. This kind of analysis is so hollow. Please do not get duped. Yes, are there Latino dudes who are unimaginably racist, okay, and misogynistic? Yeah, of course there are. You know what else exists in the fray that we're just not talking about? White guys. Yeah. I think the idea is that like, oh, well, Mexicans should know better. Like, these guys are being racist towards them. It's like, yeah, no, they don't give a So you have to figure out how to reach them. That's it. These are all the same demographics that there was one guy who was very successfully captivating, right? His name, Bernard motherfucking Sanders, dude. That's it. Where is it?
Open for some smart progressive to figure out how we're going to overcome that, but I have to imagine that the successful campaigns of the next 10 years will have to look dramatically different than Democratic infrastructure has looked like in the profession that raised Ryan and I.
And I can say, and maybe you had this experience too, as somebody who's in the independent media, you know, our show on Breaking Points last night consistently had close to 100,000 people watching, you know, millions of viewers. No attention from Democrats, lots of attention from Republicans. I hope that this is the last.
Dude, someone in the chat was talking about how big femicides are in Mexico. That further proves my point. Just want to point that out. I didn't say Mexico elected Claudia Sheinbaum to tell you that they're not misogynistic or woke. My point is, people don't care when they believe you, okay? They don't give a shit. That's the point I'm making. I'm not saying that like Mexico does not have issues with misogyny. As a Chicanx, okay, that sounds like a slur when you put an X at the end of Chicano. Growing up in California, one overwhelming theme among Hispanic men in my area was if they were citizens, was always wanting to be one of the good ones. Unfortunately, I think this allows them to vote against their interests because they always want to go to work and say I voted for Trump. Yeah, I mean, you're just proving the point further that the "Yo voy a votar por Donald Trump" was a banger. That's it. Ay, 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 por Dios. Yo voy a votar por Donald Trump. Economía.
Democratic nominee who says no to Joe Rogan. Like, even if you have to go to the studio.
I would go further than that, Ryan.
Yeah.
You need your own Joe Rogan is the bigger point. That's the bigger problem, not
well,
that.
Democrats had their own Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan endorsed Bernie Sanders in 2020.
Yeah. He's right. 100p. Here's an example of why the Hispanic vote moved. You want to know something that's funny? Old heads of the show know this very well. I am Mr. Truth Teller on the Texas GOP Latino outreach. For years, I have talked about this. For years. And you want to know who the whisperer was for the Democratic Party on the other side that captured the Latino vote? For Bernard Sanders, Chuck Rocha. Am I saying his last name right? I don't know. But he played a pretty significant role. That's the reason why Bernie was Bernie was popping in these demographics. Rocha. Chuck Rocha. You are literally the only person I've ever talked about it. Yes, that is my autistic hyperfixation. It has for years been Texas GOP Latino outreach. Texas is straight up just Latino. I think it's one of the states where it's almost majority Latino. All right. It's crazy. How the do Republicans put up LeBron numbers year after year? How'd they do that? Someone's got to figure it out. And I've been saying this for years and years. They have like taken that outreach and basically universalized it. They nationalized that outreach strategy and it was very effective. But that does not work. That does not work if there is a competent Democratic response that also goes to the Latinos in Texas and says, what do you need? I got you. That's it.
With more than 30 million eligible voters, Latinos are set to be the largest minority voting group in this year's presidential election. Their support will be essential in ensuring a win in key battleground states like Arizona.
Yeah, just tell Hispanic men that Goku would never fuck with Trump. That's what I'm saying, dude. See, this right here, we're thinking, okay? That's it. you would have flipped it back so fast. It's not even a joke. You would have flipped it back so fast. Just Goku and Kamala Harris holding hands side by side. God damn, that shit would have slapped, dude. That is so dialed in. They should have hired us. The campaign should have hired us, chat. We would have done it.
Arizona, Florida, Nevada, North Carolina, and Texas. And 2 of those states were big wins for Bernie Sanders this past primary season. In his new book out this month, Chuck Rocha, who served as an advisor to Sanders, gets into the campaign strategy on how it won over those Latino voters during the primaries. And Chuck is joining us now from Washington. So Chuck, thank you so much for joining us. I love the aesthetic, the hat, the whole look that you're rocking. I'm really into it. I remember during the primaries, in particular for me, really realizing, in particular Arizona, how popular Bernie Sanders was in Arizona was kind of like a moment where I was like, oh, wait a minute, he's really doing well.
Nevada too. The Latino Warriors carried him. The Culinary Union carried him to a dub
with Latinos. So let us talk about this. Let's talk about your book, why you wrote it, and how it offers candidates a sort of roadmap into how to tap into the Latino vote.
Let's continue.
Thank you for having me. And I wrote this book exactly because of what you described. Many people don't see Bernie Sanders as being a Latino icon or somebody that Latinos would just fall in love with. Well, it didn't happen overnight. And it didn't happen automatically. There was a lot of work that went into it. So I wanted to write the book in kind of open source, exactly how we did it, because through my 30-year career in politics, I've always heard, oh, Chuck, Latinos just don't vote. And I wanted to dispel that rumor forever and explain how we actually did it, how we were very intentional about our hiring, how we started very early, how we hired a whole team of culturally competent staff and consultants to actually go into those neighborhoods and through a multi-layered paid communication strategy, talk to Latinos where they're at. If they're a young Latino, talking to them on their cell phones. If they're an older Latino who only speaks Spanish, talking to them on Univision or Spanish radio, going into those weekly newspapers. I want to be very direct to help all the Democrats, all the progressives, and anybody who ever want to reach out to our community again on exactly what that roadmap looks like.
When I was watching the Republican National Convention, one of the things that struck me was the sheer number of Black and Latino speakers. And, some analysts had said, part of that was also about speaking to white voters to sort of indicate that the Republican Party is a big tent party or bigger tent party. But clearly the Latino and Black vote is incredibly important this presidential election. Why is that?
So it was a brilliant strategy, and people don't automatically think of this current president as being somebody that a Black voter or a brown voter would give any recommendation to. But what he needs to do in the number of states that you mentioned early on is peel off some of that support and shore up his white support. Again, what you said in your intro of this. And he did all three. Now, everybody out there that's a progressive Democrat, Black voter, or brown voter goes, Donald Trump is not with us. We're never going to vote for him. And you're right. The majority of Black and brown voters, and big majorities with Black voters, are not going to vote for him. But what he needs to do is skim off some of that vote. And he knows, like I know, if he's done any polling like I've done all summer long, that there's a little bit of a softness in Black men and brown men. So that's exactly who he was talking to, trying to get 1%, 2%, 3% of those voters to be open to a message and not really open to what he's been doing in the past. Like, don't look behind the screen. Look at me taking and talking to you now.
Oh, that's fascinating. So when it comes to Biden's campaign, especially during the primary, you sort of lagged behind Sanders in organizing Latino voters. What led to the Vermont senator's success in winning the Latino vote in states like California and Texas? Because I got to tell you, that was also another surprise to me, California, because I thought for sure Latino voters in California would be leaning into Biden. And then to hear that this was a strong area for Bernie Sanders was, it caught me off guard. So what did he do right?
Again, I'll put this in the book because it's such a great question. You hit it the nail on the head. I'd like for your people who are listening right now to know that the very first time we did a poll in Nevada, Joe Biden was beating Bernie Sanders with the Latino vote by 5 points. By caucus day, Bernie Sanders won 73% of the Latino vote. We moved an electorate over 70 points in 6 months. To my point, Joe Biden didn't spend any money. He didn't have any money in that 6 months. And we had money, resources, and a very culturally competent campaign. And we're running, again, that multi-layered approach. And so what I've proven in writing this book and what we did is if you treat a Latino voter like you do that elusive, white, persuadable voter that we love to talk about in the collar counties of big cities and give them the same treatment as a persuadable voter as you do a white voter, they will show up at the same rate as a white voter. So you never have to say that black or brown people underperform when it comes to voting. What we've proved, if you make that investment and you do it with the right group of consultant and employees and folks that are working on the ground from the community who look like the community, you can make great inroads. And that is my cry to the Democratic Party today and to Joe Biden and to all these super PACs out there is that you must invest in this community if you want them to vote.
You know, we talked a little bit about the president and perhaps his challenge with Latino voters is his immigration.
Yeah, Bernie crushed it in Dearborn. The win came following sustained outreach aimed at Arab and Muslim Americans from Zaid Jalali in 2016. Bernie crushed it in Dearborn with Arab voters, Muslim voters. Bro, they had Palestinians rocking the fucking keffiyeh doing, what is it called, the dabka or whatever, the dance, like at his rallies and shit. It's crazy. Bernie absolutely crushed every demographic that went to Trump this election. Every demo. And then the Democrats are like, how did we lose these demos? Like, how do we? Yeah, I don't know. You kept yelling falsely that they were like misogynistic pieces of shit. And I'm not like excusing people for outwardly being not only hostile to the Democratic Party, but then taking it one step further and like voting for the Republicans, right? Like that's ridiculous. But like as someone who's been called a Bernie bro, misogynist, racist, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I don't give a shit that people are saying that. I know where they're coming from when they say that. I think it's like a cynical smear. Just like when people say I'm anti-Semitic, like that's insane. It's an insane position to hold, right? Like I guess I have a tougher skin for this sort of thing, but I don't expect everyone to have that same kind of resilience. And especially when you're running a campaign, you can't do that. Your job is to open up your arms. And if you can open up your arms to like neocon, warmongering, torturing pieces of monstrous scumbags, which you shouldn't open your arms to, you can damn well open your goddamn arms to average working class Americans who have been duped. It's so annoying. It's who the Democratic Party opens its arms to, who they want inside of the tent that is a problem. Among Latinos, a key part of the Democratic voter base for decades, Trump benefited from a mammoth 14% points bump. Nowhere is Trump's reshaping of the electorate more apparent than in the states of Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. This time, Trump won all three states, crushing Democrats' hopes that Harris could find a path of victory. Despite early election night losses in the southern states of North Carolina and Georgia. In his victory speech, Florida, he said he set to win the popular vote too. They came from all quarters, union, non-union, African-American, Hispanic-American. He told the roaring crowd, we had everybody. It was beautiful. Exit polls suggest Latinos in Pennsylvania amounted to about 5% of the total vote. Trump garnered 42% of that vote, compared to 27 when he ran against Joe Biden. The polls will continue to change as votes are counted, but are broadly representative of electoral trends in the state's Latino belt and Eastern Industrial Corridor that has shifted to the right in the last two elections. You want to know what's crazy? It's like Hazelton, right? These racist motherfuckers were so mad that Hazelton went from like 90% white to like 90% Latino over the course of a couple of years. And all of those guys who started small businesses and basically like revitalize the town on the verge of bankruptcy. All the dudes that live there are now right wing. That's why I always laugh when these guys are like demographics of destiny. It's like, no, dude, you're just racist. Like you believe this shit. You think like Latinos are of one mind and are automatically a lock for the Dems when, you know, this past election has proven that.